Hey guys, thank you again for joining in to our weekly podcast. We're going to veer off from doing our weekly series of RepPath, the RepPath Leadership Series, and just do more of a one-on-one today with me. We're gonna focus today's topic is the secret sauce to breaking into medical sales. Now, again, guys, I wish that this was just a silver bullet. I'll give you one answer or one suggestion, and then you'd all be able to break into this industry. But that's just not the case. So even though it's about breaking in, this is definitely a value for anybody looking for a new role, because we're going to be covering many topics that's going to focus both on, breaking in and also advancing to that next role in your career. So before we begin though, guys, remember, this is going to be recorded live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching. That's where all my content is being saved. So you'll have access to this and all previous content. Obviously, it's free. So definitely make sure you do that. Also, as an added bonus, I'm going to be giving out a promo code both for the attendees of this podcast today, and also an additional bonus for any lobby members that are viewing today. So I'll give that code out at the end of the podcast, and it'll give you some additional savings on if you're choosing any of my coaching and any other services that could be of help to you. Okay, so the key to breaking in and also just getting another medical sales job, you could be in the industry for 30 years and still need to follow a process. The most important thing, guys, is you have to put the work in if you want to be successful and be able to get a job in medical sales. A lot of you reach out to me and you're like, Joe, I don't know what's going on. I've had 15 years experience. I was doing well. I got laid off a year ago, and now it seems like no one, wants to talk to me. And it's while you do have great experience and you could be an outstanding rep, the competition is insane, guys. So again, every time I post a job opening, I get anywhere from 300 to 500 applications, 300 to 500 resumes that I have to sort through with me and my team to be able to pick out the best candidates. Now, again, while there's a lot of candidates out in there that are just, taking a shot and throwing stuff up against the wall, hoping it sticks, there's still a huge amount that are very good candidates. So you have to do everything possible, all the little things, if you want to stand out. So even if you are 20 years in oncology, 10 years in pain, you've been a district manager, a regional director, remember there's 10 times as many reps out there or managers that are going for these same roles. So just to dive right into this, there's 4 key components that you need either to break in or get your next medical sales role. And that's resume optimization, storytelling. Storytelling is huge, where a lot of reps, they read their resume, but they don't have a good story. So you need a really good story if you really want to stand out. We'll talk about that, moving forward. This isn't, telling a story about, once upon a time, but it has to be something that's engaging and shows a lot of passion of why you want this role, because you don't want to come off showing that you just want another job. So storytelling, number 2, networking, number 3. It's very important. The old days of shooting your resume out to hundreds of companies and hoping that something sticks just doesn't work anymore, guys. So you have to network properly simultaneously when you're applying for roles. And number 4 is interview preparation. A lot of you, I know I did it too for years, where you wing it, you research the company, you learn more about the manager, and you just go in there and, you go on a bunch of interviews and hope that you get better on each interview so you can eventually get a job. But you really do got to put the time in, guys. If you're not going to work with a coach or work with any other friends of yours that are in the industry to help you practice, pull your phone out, record yourself, go over some of your answers. You're going to see that you do a lot of things that you don't even realize that you're doing. You give a lot of ums or repeat the same phrase. I mean, I do it too. I probably do it on this podcast all the time, but the whole point is you want to be able to record yourself and get better and better because, again, competition is huge. You got too many people going for these roles. So you have to master these 4 things. Again, it's the resume, storytelling, networking, and interview prep. Okay. So today we're going to start with the resume optimization. So let's start with our resumes. Okay, guys, again, 300 to 500 resumes for every every opening. You're going to have to do a lot to stand out just past your experience, and one stat, I talked about this on a post that on a video I did today. For some of you out there that think I have to have medical sales experience to get a job, it's just not true. Okay. So researching the data, actually 8%, it's not a high number, but still 8% of all medical sales reps don't even have a college degree. So for some of you out there that don't even have the 4-year college degree and think, well, I'm never going to bother getting into medical sales. Again, you still have a chance. It's almost 1 in 10 or about 1 in 12 that still break into the industry. Also, I hear, Joe, I don't have sales experience. I'm never going to break in. So only a third of all sales reps that break in actually have the B2B sales experience. So there's a huge number of candidates out there that either have a clinical background or just, coming right out of college or other areas, maybe a tech within a hospital or a nurse, that were able to break in. So I'm not saying here, don't get sales experience. Definitely get your B2B sales experience if you can, because that's going to make you a much better candidate. And if you don't have a 4-year degree and you could still get it, obviously you want that 4-year degree because most of the companies do look for that. But if you don't have those 2, it doesn't mean you're shut out. Just as a quick tip, for individuals that don't have a 4-year degree, quick suggestion of going down the right path, because you just don't want to just send it to any type of medical companies in the industry. So for instance, I would not apply as my first choice to pharmaceutical companies. If you don't have a college degree, most pharma companies do not hire reps without a 4-year degree. So I would steer clear. I would focus first on distribution, medical device, or distribution companies. Distribution first, and then medical device second. But a lot of distribution, small distributors out there will hire reps without a 4-year degree. So I would start there first, then look at some of your smaller device companies, maybe some of your diagnostic smaller companies out there where they have a lot of less red tape than, say, the Pfizers and Medtronics of the world that are, they have HR departments. They have certain requirements that they're not going to be able to overlook. So start at those smaller companies first in distribution before you start looking at pharma and any other industry. So that's just a quick side note. But let's get right into the resume. So first tip, guys, after you formulate your resume, first thing you have to do, and I get both, I get Word documents and I get PDFs. Always, if you're going to make changes, obviously you got to do it in Word, but before you send it to a recruiter or a hiring manager, make sure you convert to PDF. Okay. Sometimes when you open it up, most of these managers and recruiters or hiring sales managers are opening this up on their cell phones. Okay. So when you open it up on your cell phone, depending on the phone that you have, the formatting could come off, looking a little crazy. Sometimes there's certain, lines that are left out, or, the indents on one side could be a little off. So that won't happen. Whatever you save it as and you convert it to PDF, it's going to be exactly the way that you saved it. So that whoever's getting that resume has a very neat, formatted, correct resume. Because some of these managers, they might say, well, I understand he sent it over or she sent it over as a Word document. That's why it looks a little off. Remember, your competition is not doing that. They have it saved PDF. They converted it to PDF. So they're going to be a step ahead because it's going to look neater right from jump. So you don't want to give them, any advantages. You want to do all the little things right, because that's really the secret. We're going to go over a lot of tips today. Doing all the little things is how you get a step ahead and really stand out. So quick tip, always save PDF. Now, when we get into the actual resume, there's all kinds of crazy formats. For me, I am not a big fan of a lot of the loud resumes that have, for me, it kind of looks like a realtor when they put their picture in the corner. Some of you guys might decide to do that. Good for you. I'm not against it. It's just not something that I would do. A lot of people put all kinds of crazy tables. I see self-assessments where it shows like a grading from 1 to 5 and all these skills and where what they grade themselves. I mean, for me, it's a little crazy because why would you rate yourself anything less than a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10 for any skill? So I don't really understand that, but there's a lot of you guys that do that. And the louder and more information and crazy formatting that you put into the resume, you have to understand what happens when your resume gets sent out. Your resume gets sent to a recruiter. Okay. So if you send me your resume today, we have a call, you tell me about what you're looking for. I get your resume. I don't have any openings. Say you're in Boston, and I don't have any openings in Boston as of today. I get your resume and I put it into what's called an ATS. That's called an applicant tracking system. Some of you guys might know what that is. Some of you might not, but most recruiters, definitely all companies, HR departments, they have some sort of applicant tracking system that basically stores all their resumes. Okay. So the reason why I have to store them, because in 3 months, I'm not going to remember, all the reps that I had if I have an opening now in Boston that applied 3 months ago. So I need a database to store all the information. So I get your resume, I upload it into the ATS, and then it parses the resume. So it's important. The parsing means basically that whenever I put search words in, whenever there's an opening months down the line, it's going to recognize those words in the resume. So that's when you hear it saying it's AI friendly. Okay. And we'll talk more about that too, but it's going to recognize those words so I can search it and get that resume later on. When you have crazy tables, pictures, all this crazy shit going on, what happens when I go to search and put in, say I just put in Boston, or when I go to put your resume in to save it, sometimes the applicant tracking system with a very crazy formatted resume doesn't recognize it. So it doesn't save the resume. The average recruiter is not going to call you back up when he's got hundreds of resumes to save. He's got tons of candidates that can be a good fit for this role and say, hey, Joe, I just want to let you know, I try to save your resume, but it's formatted in a crazy format. So it's my ATS isn't allowing, it's not saving into my ATS. They're not going to do that. They're too busy. So they're going to take your resume. It doesn't save. They're probably going to move on to the next candidate. So you want to make sure you don't have crazy formatting with too much going on, because it actually can hurt you. And at the end of the day, these managers, most of them don't want that. They want individuals that drive results and get to the point. Okay. So less is more, guys. Loud resumes with all kinds of designs and all that crazy stuff, it's not going to help you. Your results and your experience are everything. Okay. So when it comes to, okay, what does that mean about driving results? So I talk about this all the time with all my clients. Think about anyone that's an athlete out there, or anyone knows anything about sports. I'm sure that most of you, if you haven't seen one, you can look it up. The back of a baseball, basketball, football card, whatever it is, look at the back of a card. It's loaded with statistics. Okay. So if we have Michael Jordan's card, it's going to be loaded with a bunch of statistics. It's not going to say Michael Jordan passes the ball to Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan sometimes drives down the lane and dunks the ball. Sometimes he gets the ball, and then instead of taking a shot, he does a alley-oop to Horace Grant. Then he also does 500 push-ups a day and shoots 300 shots. Those are daily activities. What it says is he's a 6-time NBA champ, 10-time scoring champ, 5-time MVP, 9-time defensive, all defensive team, whatever all his stats are, the points per game, rebounds, assists, all numbers. Okay. Those are his results. That's what you see. That's what people care about. So when you got to think of it the same way with the resume, it's got to be loaded with the results. So when I see it, and I got Susan Jones' resume, I got to go, holy cow, who's this Susan? Look at all these results. I want to meet her. I mean, this is the way the hiring manager thinks. Then when you sit down with the hiring manager in the interview, and you go over your results and your accomplishments, then you can talk about your daily activities. What's your process? What's your strategy? What do you do every day that makes you so good? So you save that for the interview. Because remember, guys, resumes get you interviews, interviews get you jobs. You don't jump right from a resume and they offer you a job. You got to meet with them and speak to them so they know if you click and you have the right personality and you're the right fit for both the team and their customers. So that's that's just the process of what you want to get in your resume. So driving results. So what do I mean by results? There's 4 key areas that you have to have in your resume. You don't have to have all 4 for every role, but if I don't see any of these on a resume, it's a red flag. So the 4 things they're looking for are rankings, 2, percent to quota, 3, sales growth, and that could be measured month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, and awards. And before we move forward, guys, just because I'm rambling on, I forget, any questions that you have, please just submit them. My producer, James, will keep track of all the questions being asked. I'm going to take a break in a few minutes and address any questions that anyone asks. So please, any questions, nothing's, anything goes, ask me anything, and I'll be able to address that because I'll take a break in a few minutes and take other breaks throughout this podcast. But please make sure you submit your questions whenever you think of one. Thanks, James. Okay. So again, 4 results that they're looking for. It's rankings, percent to quota, sales growth, and lastly, awards. So President's Club, Rep of the Year, Rep of the Month, Diamond Club, whatever awards they give, you want to make sure you have that in there. So again, you don't need all 4 for every role, but if you don't have any of those and it's loaded with words, and you have all these sales positions, and I just see a lot of verbiage on your resume. Most managers think the way I do. Well, number one, are you not putting it in there because you didn't hit your goals, and you didn't have high achievements, or did you really not have a sales role? Because there's a lot of jobs out there, and these managers are smart. They see a lot of resumes and deal with a lot of candidates. There's customer service type roles or sales support roles, that they really didn't have a quota associated with their name. That's the telltale sign. Majority of times, if you don't have a quota, you're really not in a sales role. Now, again, I get with smaller companies, you could say, Joe, they never gave me a quota. I just have to go out there and sell. When that could be true, but again, you should know your volume. You should know something that shows that how you're doing as a sales rep, because believe me, they're going to want to know that. And you have to have that in your resume. The more numbers you have, the more accomplishments, the better it is for your resume. The more wording, more descriptions, trust me, guys, red flag. They don't want to read all that stuff. They want to see, what did you do? What are your accomplishments? Okay, so diving into the resume, if we start at the top with your contact info, simply, guys, your name, the city and state you live in. You do not have to put your street address. That's not important, because the applicant tracking system is going to recognize the city and state. So then when I do a search later on and I look for Boston, Massachusetts, I see that come up right away. And if you live in a suburb, a lot, just as a FYI, you either can put the city, if you're close enough to Boston and you live 5 minutes out, 20 minutes out, you could just put Boston. But even if you live in a smaller suburb and you put that city in, just, again, for a quick tip out there, a lot of the ATSs, they'll recognize that, and they do a radius around those cities of either, I think, 25 or 50 miles. So it's going to pick up your resume anyway. But if you do live close to a big city, you could just put the bigger city. If you're a few minutes away, that's no big deal. Your cell phone, your email address, and your LinkedIn profile. Those just have the LinkedIn link. That's all the information you need for your contact info. You don't have to put a lot of crazy other stuff in. I don't need to see your Instagram account or your TikTok, address or all those other things. We don't need all that. LinkedIn is important, but if you do put the LinkedIn in there, make sure that your resume and LinkedIn are matching. Okay. You can't have one job on one and not on the other. All right. That's a red flag. Now, sometimes I get it. I'm not as much of a stickler with that. I understand that people don't update their LinkedIn profile as much as they do their resume. But if there's dates that are off, if you show you've been in a company a year and a half on one and it's 3 years on the other, or you have 2 extra jobs on one and not on the other, it's going to create a lot of red flags, and they will not say anything to you guys. Trust me, they will just pass on you. So make sure it's buttoned up and all the dates, all the positions line up identically, because that's one of the biggest things. I have recruiters that sometimes I've sent and I, missed looking at their LinkedIn account because, busy doing a million things. And I sent over a good resume and they're like, well, Joe, I checked their LinkedIn account. It doesn't match. This company's strict. Trust me, they're going to catch this. They're not going to move them forward. So make sure, please, that it matches identically. All right. So when it gets into under that, typically some reps put in a summary. Now, I have a couple feelings about professional summaries. If you're going to put a summary in, please make sure it's unique. If it's not unique, get rid of it. I don't need to see something that you literally just went into ChatGPT and just shot out a bunch of adjectives. So if it's loaded with detail-oriented, sales-driven, account management focused, all these things that are basically adjectives that describe every sales rep out there, leave it out, guys. That's nonsense. So you don't want to put that in just to throw it in. So if you're going to make it unique, for instance, saying that you have 22 years of medical device experience or 22 years of pharmaceutical sales experience, focusing on buy and bill, specialty pharmacy, formulary approval, P&T experience, VAC experience, getting products approved through the VAC committee, working with key IDNs or hospital systems around the country. These are unique skills that should be in your resume, not career focused, customer oriented, nonsense. That's just, they're adjectives. Unless you could tell me something that is really unique and a real skill that you acquired from being in the field all these years, leave it out. Okay. So, but they are good to have when you make it specific. Keep it to tops four sentences, maybe 5, but you don't give me a big, long, novel to read at the top, because no one's going to read it. They're going to get right to your experience because that's what they care about. Okay. So when you get into your experience for each role, and we're going to take a break after this, we finish up the resume in a couple minutes, so then I can field some questions that some of you might have. So when it comes to your job description, so if you work, we'll just stick with Medtronic. You're a sales rep and you've been there from 2020 to 2025. So you give the dates. You also want to give the month, because when you don't give the month, guys, recruiters and hiring managers are skeptical. So if you just say 2020 to 25, okay, were you just laid off in 25? Are you still there? Were you hired in January of 2020 or December of 2020? And was there a gap between that date and your previous role? So always give the month and year. That's all you need. You don't need the exact day, but the month and year. September 2020 to March 2025, whatever it is, but keep that in there. If you have a gap of a couple of months, it's not a big deal. Once you start getting into larger gaps that are over a year, you got to realize there are going to be questions asked, because a lot of reps, a lot of managers, they're wondering why, there's very few people out there that are sales reps and are financially stable enough to just take off, a year or two from the medical sales industry. It's just not, it's not normal. So when you have a big gap, that's what's, those are questions that could come up. But again, this happens to people. People get laid off. It's hard to find a job. So it's, sometimes you move and in a new area, it's not as easy to get a job in, say, Tulsa as it is in New York City. So it's okay to have gaps. You just got to be prepared to answer and address those challenges and those questions when they come. But again, make sure you have the dates in, because they'll question and they'll think that there's a bigger gap in there if you just have the year. So getting to your actual job description. This is the one thing that I'm, very set on, is having a 1-sentence job description. If you have to go to 2 sentences, okay. But reps, I see it all the time. They give a description that's like a paragraph long. First, they start off what the company does, and they give a background of, Boston Scientific, a $6 billion company located in, San Francisco, California, whatever. And it's like, what the heck do I care about that? Don't tell me about the company. I want to know what you do, and you need to answer that in 1 sentence. And there's 3 questions that you should answer in that 1 sentence. That's, what did you sell? Who did you sell to? And then third, where? So what were you selling? Who was your customer? And where did you sell it? So an example for me, when I worked at Boston Scientific, I was responsible for sales of spinal cord stimulators to neurosurgeons and pain specialists in the New York City territory. What did I sell? Spinal cord stimulators. Who did I sell to? Pain specialists and neurosurgeons. Where? New York City territory. It clearly says what I did there. And the reason why it's important, guys, because you got to think of the psychology behind this. When a hiring manager or is looking at this, they want reps that are concise but effective in their messaging. A lot of these descriptions I read, you don't even talk about what you sell there. You just tell me about a couple of daily activities. I don't even know the product you sell. So if you can't get that concisely in the first sentence, they look at it as, how is this person going to present to a doctor? Because remember, the whole interview process is essentially one big sales call. Excuse me. It's one sales call, guys, and they're always evaluating you on how you sell. So if you can't get to the point in a resume and quickly tell me what you do there, they think that, how the heck is this person going to tell me, what they do, or how can they sell a product to a physician? Because they're not going to get to the point. So again, a lot of times when I see very verbose, wordy resumes, it's a reflection of how the rep speaks. The reps that get right to the point and say what they do, who they sold, where, and then give their accomplishments and bullet point those accomplishments and show the rankings, show the growth, the quotas they've hit, the awards they've won. That's what they want to see. Get to the point. Doctors don't come out there and say, hey, Joe, I'm in between patients, but let's go sit down for a half hour and maybe go grab a beer at lunch. Of course not. They don't do that. They give you 5-10 seconds. Hey, Joe, what do you got? And you got to quickly, talk to them, hopefully continue that into a couple of minutes, but you got to get your messaging out and why you're there quickly. It's the same thing as, tell me what you do, get to the point. All right. So I'm going to take a drink of water, but James, we're going to break for a second, see if we have any questions that I can address.
We got a couple for you.
Awesome.
All right. So Cotswar, I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly. As a biomedical graduate student, how to approach for getting into medical sales?
Yeah. So great question. The good thing that you're doing it right now. All right. So to do it before you graduate is always you're getting a step ahead. So what I would suggest though, is that while you're trying, because if you didn't graduate yet, there's very few companies that are going to hire someone that still has another year of college. So what I would suggest is getting sales experience while you can. So, there's a lot of guys that I know that used to work for Cutco selling knives. Great experience. It's very tough, but they did this, when I was in college. There's a lot of B2B sales roles that if you can get, part-time or during your summers or anything while you're in school to get sales experience, There's two things that it does. A, it's great for your resume. You also, we're assuming that you're going to get sales results and actually do well, because that's important. You can't just take a sales job and say, hey, I did this for a year and you didn't do anything. No, you got to actually get results. But number one, you want that for your resume. Number two, you want to make sure that sales is for you. It's not for everyone, guys. Everyone wants to get into this industry because they think it's so cool. You're working with doctors, you're in the operating room, you're dealing with patients, you're saving lives, and you make a lot of money and you have freedom and you get a car. Those are all positives, but there's a lot of negatives, guys. So doctors in offices don't just, jump up and down when you come in the room, especially when you first start. When you go into a new territory, nobody wants to see you. You really are pissing them off, and I'm not trying to be too harsh, but it's the truth. You come in there and everyone's like, what do you want? We don't see sales reps. They don't want you to ruin their day, because their day is to take care of patients. It's a business. Now, of course, they care about their patients and they need to make sure they get the best results for them, but it's a business. They have to see more patients to make money to keep the business going. You impede on it. So you're taking time away from them to put money into the businesses and pay for their whole company, essentially. So realize that it's not like they're going to be like, oh my God, I really need to talk to this rep about this new product, because a lot of them, they can get by on what they're doing today. So I know I went off on a tangent a little bit there, but the whole point is get sales experience now while you can, because it's great to have on your resume, but you need to know if it's for you, because sometimes it's not for everyone. And it's better to know now before you graduate, before you get out there and go down a career path that, is just not the best thing for your future. So I hope that helped.
All right. We have Lauren Barnett. I've been working in plastic surgery as a surgical tech for 6 years. What advice do you have to break into the medical sales industries? Are 1099 jobs a good start to gain more experience?
Yeah. So to answer the first question, advice for breaking into medical sales, so you have to really show, because surgical techs definitely make great sales reps. Number one, you want to apply to the jobs that you are a fit for. I see this so many times where reps or candidates apply to roles that they're not qualified for. And they think, hey, screw it, I'll do it anyway. They don't even read the requirements. And again, this happens too much, guys. I get a resume and it says, Joe, I'm interested, in the email. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They didn't even tell me the position they're going for. Sometimes I'm working on 30, 40 openings. I don't even know which role you're talking about. So you want to make sure that you are an actual qualified candidate. How do you know that? If you're not meeting at least 60%, and it could even be up to 75% of their requirements, don't even apply. Of course, you could do whatever you want and apply to all these jobs. The problem with that is when you get ghosted time after time, it gets discouraging. And these recruiters will ghost you. If it, because I do it, I can't reply to everyone, especially if you're not a fit. I try my best, but there's too many candidates. So number one, make sure that you're applying to those jobs that you are a fit. And two, when you apply, bullet point the reasons why you're a fit. If they ask for a 4-year college degree, have a 4-year college degree from Florida State University. If they're looking for 2 years of surgical experience, have 3 years of surgical experience doing XYZ. Must live in Boston, Massachusetts, live right in Boston, Massachusetts. Like literally bullet point what the reasons why you're a fit and how you meet the requirements that they're asking for. Because if you make it easier for the recruiter, it's going to make it easier for the recruiter to relay that message to the hiring manager. So my job on the recruiting end is to make the hiring manager's job easier. If I just shoot him resumes or her resumes and just say, hey, this is a good candidate, they're going to be like, Joe, what do I need you for? I need you to break it down a little bit. Give me a little quick background about this person. But when you make it easy for me, and say you're a fit because of X, Y, and Z, bullet point, nice and simple, not war and peace. You don't have to write everything out paragraph after paragraph. I get that a lot too, guys. Do not do that. Truly bullet point the reasons why you're a fit. You could put reasons why I'm a fit, or how I meet the requirements. Boom, 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 boom. I'll get that. I'll cut and paste and send it over to the hiring manager. Obviously, we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to get more info for him, but that will help me get it to the hiring manager and make it easier for that hiring manager. So do those two things and you will see a much better response, to try to break in or get a role. And 1099 jobs are definitely a great avenue. They are not for the faint of heart, guys. So there's a lot of reps out there that have done really, really well. And there's a lot of great 1099 roles. So for any of you that don't know what that is, that's a commission only role. So you're essentially an independent contractor, where you just, whatever you sell, that's how you get paid. You don't get a company car. I mean, again, there's all different instances where they could give you different perks, but there's no base salary. You don't get any benefits. It's just go out there and sell and we'll pay you a commission on your sales. So it's not easy, but it is a way to break in, and especially if you're a surgical tech with experience with a certain therapeutic area. You could start with the relationships you have, and it'll be easier to get in there and have conversations. And if doctors start purchasing from you, you could do really well, but for a rep that has no experience and is just going to go out there and just knock on doors, I mean, it's going to be very tough, and it's hard for a lot of reps when they don't have any expense account or don't have a base salary because, they pay for gas, you pay for parking. You're going to have to pay for some lunches or breakfasts sometimes to see physicians. Sometimes you got to shell out some money before you start seeing a return. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it is a great way to break in and break in quickly. Okay. I've been a territory manager, farmer rep for 16 years in the Philippines. Okay, I'm sorry, man. I didn't. I'll just
sorry. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I was muted.
It's okay. I'll just read it out. I moved to Canada and studied business management. I started applying right after I finished my studies here in Canada, but I don't even get an interview. What advice can you get to me to get noticed? I mean, this is a tougher question because this is a very personal question one-on-one. I mean, number one, I have to see your resume, because typically if you're not even getting, again, like I said before, resumes get you interviews, interviews get you jobs. If you're not even getting the interview, then there's something wrong with your resume. Something isn't translating that's getting these hiring managers or recruiters excited to want to push you forward in the process. But if you're getting interviews and you're not getting job offers, then we know there's something wrong in the interview process. Something you might not be saying or you are saying that isn't attracting these hiring managers or companies. So that's a tough one. It could be a host of different things. What I would suggest is you could shoot me your resume and I can look at that to start there. Send it to my email, Joe, Joe, at RepPath.com. That's Joe, Joe, at RepPath.com. Shoot me that and I can take a look at it and we can have, a discussion, after that one-on-one.
Okay. Lauren Barnett says, thank you. And then we have a couple questions on a platform I can't bring up, but what's the biggest mistakes that you see on entry-level resumes?
The biggest mistakes I see is like I was talking about before, talking about daily activities and generic adjectives to describe, the type of rep you are and not focusing on your results. If you're a sales rep, you should only care about your results. You should be obsessed with the number. All the high performers in medical sales know their territory, know where they're getting their business from, know, where they're ranked and how they're going to get from being the 5th to the 1st ranked, how many procedures that will take, where they're getting their business from, which doctors can help them get to that. They know everything and they're obsessed about their number, their competitors, and that's all they care about. So if you don't have it loaded with numbers, huge mistake. And if it's loaded with those generic adjectives, the saying is, show me, don't tell me. So a lot of times people say, well, I'm a hard worker. Okay, this happens a lot in interviews. No one's going to outwork me, Joe. And I'm honest. I can't hold it in. I straight up tell reps, well, I got to be honest. What did you do to prepare for this interview? And sometimes they didn't do much. They researched the company. They tried to call a couple people. And then meanwhile, I have other reps that had conversations with 10 different individuals from the company. They developed a business plan based specifically on the needs of this territory because they did that much research, and then gave me a very in-depth business plan that I could actually use because it has all the key players that are the key doctors, the key hospitals, and it's very applicable. So they put in that much work. So they're going to really stand out. And they showed me they're a hard worker. They didn't just tell me. So loading it with those adjectives is a bunch of fluff that isn't going to get you anywhere. And it's going to keep you in that high pile of resumes that are going to get passed on. The one thing that has never happened, and that's why I always say numbers, accomplishments, show your results. I've never once had a hiring manager tell me, Joe, that rep was great. I got to be honest, just too many accomplishments. I had to pass on him. Never, ever going to happen. So focus more on your accomplishments and less on the daily activities.
Hold on one second. Here we go. What question should I ask at the end of an interview to stand out?
Yeah, so you want to have thoughtful questions about the territory. Okay, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. You want to know the expectations. You have to show them you have an understanding, and it's a two-way street. This isn't just, I'm in an interview. I should just write down 5 questions to ask this guy to show that that I'm interested. But I'll just take any job because I want to break in the industry. No, you really want to know. You don't want to jump from the frying pan into the fire. If it's a product, for instance, that you don't even know the coverage, is if you're selling a device, in hospitals, for instance, and you want to know what GPOs is this product on. So if you're, for some of you who don't know what a GPO is, it's a group purchasing organization. You could have the greatest product in the world, and your territory, especially in New Jersey, HPG is a big GPO in New Jersey that, has a lot of hospitals in New Jersey as an account. And if you're trying to sell something that isn't on that GPO, you're not going to be able to sell it. It's very hard. It's like, if for any of you, the guys that are golfers out there, you're trying to play golf on a course that you're not a member. So you might be able to sneak on once in a while. You pay the starter to sneak you on, here or then. You get on late at night when all the members are gone or whatever. That's not going to last too long. So you're not going to actually be able to play. It's the same thing. If they're not on that GPO, you're not going to be able to get that product, used by the doctors. So that would be a question. What GPOs is this product, on? And then what is the majority of the territory? Are there any restrictions in the territory? Is there good coverage? Is there any, how is the territory currently doing? Obviously, why is there an opening? What do the good reps do? That's always important. You want to keep yourself, focused with the high performers and what the high performers are doing. So I would find out who are the high performers on the team, and he says Susan, John, and Bill. Okay, great. What do they do well that makes them a high performer? Because you want to keep yourself associated with those high performers. You want to speak and learn from the high performers. Every team has high performers, middle of the pack, and then the negative, individuals that have one foot out the door. You obviously don't want to know what the middle of the pack and the low performers are doing. You want to know what the high performers are doing, because before you leave, your goal is to be able to get their contact information from that hiring manager and say, and I would ask him, can I speak with Bill, John or Susan before the next interview because I would like to pick their brain. And a lot of times they might not give you the information, or they might say, I have to speak to them first before I send it to you. But it's a good follow-up when you do your follow-up email. But asking questions about what good looks like in 2025, or the rest of the year, what are some of the goals, and focusing on those high performers is key. But you also want to make sure, because I never met a company that doesn't value closing as one of the most important things. So when it comes to closing, you want to make sure that before you close and outright say, can I have the job? I've had reps say that. You want to get a pulse of what they think of you. So I clearly just outright say at the end, when they say, hey, Joe, we've been speaking for the past hour, do you have any questions for me? And I'll simply say, yeah, you learned a lot about me in the past hour. What do you think? Just keep it open-ended. Let them answer, as opposed to think, do you think I'm a good rep, or do you think I'm a good fit? You don't want to give them yes or no's. Open-ended, so they have to explain themselves. You also want to see what they retained, and it's not a big deal if they give you an objection, because again, guys, remember, this is all a practice sales call. They're always evaluating you. So they might ask you, they might say, well, Joe, I think you're a good fit, but honestly, you just don't have enough cardiology experience. Now, that's an objection. They might just be testing you. Sometimes they might really mean that, but they always, you never know what they're thinking. So it's okay to have an objection, because doctors are going to give you objections. So sometimes they want to see how you handle that, before, you move on. So after you ask them, what do you think? If they do give you an objection, you handle the objection. Then you find out what is the next step in the process. If they say, we're going to bring back 3 reps for a final interview next week, then you outright say, are you going to move me on to the next round? I really want this. Let them know that you really want the role. I love this company. From everything I learned, and you regurgitate what you've learned by speaking to other reps and the reasons why you love it. Say, I really want this position. I want to be moved forward. Would you move me forward? It's okay to be blunt, guys. You got to be aggressive. So that's one way to ask. Sometimes you can just ask in a different way. Is there any reason why you won't move me to the next round? And see what they say. But you have to attempt to close them before you leave. So, and another key point just to bring up, it's not a question, but this is a tip that no one does, and every time I tell candidates to do this, they get a great response before your next interview, because after the interview, you're always going to send a thank you email. Everyone does. Nobody, very few send a thank you email before the interview. So try to get that hiring manager's email from whoever set up the interview. Sometimes you could figure it out just by knowing the company email, first name, last name. I get that. But really try to get that email, and send a thank you email showing that person that you're excited about the opportunity. You're excited to speak tomorrow at 2 p.m. and learn more. It goes a long way, guys, because very few people do it. You're going to stand out, and you're also going to show them that you're really eager for this role.
Okay, we have, are there any networking events or conferences that I should attend?
There's always tons of networking and conferences, and just because, I'm actually a member of the lobby. So look that up, guys. It's a great network. It's essentially LinkedIn, a smaller version of LinkedIn focused just in the medical field. So there's about 80,000 members all in the industry nationwide. That's just one quick place to start. So look them up. But there's networks and, all around the country. I really would just do a Google search of exactly what you're looking for, whether it's pharma or device, capital equipment, whatever it is that you're looking to get in. But your easiest network is LinkedIn. So start reaching out, start joining groups on there. There's tons of them. You could join a different group, every day. They're loaded with different groups, but, start reaching out to companies and individuals that, you want to get into that industry. and start asking, to jump on a couple minutes, jump on a phone call with them to pick their brain. But, really it's at your fingertips. To me, the biggest network is LinkedIn. But again, the lobby's great, but anything else, in terms of face-to-face, there's always meetings and things going on around the country that, would take me days to get into, but you could just do a quick Google search of exactly what you're looking for, and that should be able to help you out.
What questions should I not ask in the first round interview?
Well, I think some of the things that seem obvious to most of us, that a lot of reps do, believe it or not, you don't want to make it more about you. I mean, if you have a vacation coming up and you didn't even get the job offer and you're already saying, just to let you know, I'm going to be away the first week of June. For me, I don't care if it's my honeymoon. If I really want to roll, that comes first. I'm old school that way. Don't ask any questions about vacation. Don't get too much of the personal stuff where, it looks like, you don't want to work that hard, or you're already looking for time off. I mean, that's a big red flag. When you start talking about all the personal things that you have going on the next couple of months, I mean, trust me, guys, there's a lot of good candidates. They'll just go, I don't want to deal with this rep, and move on. So no questions about vacation, all that stuff. I mean, let's be real. It's pretty typical. It's usually a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, so you don't really need to get into that. Get the job first, because if the vacation time is what you're worried about, I mean, I think you got bigger concerns. I just think any red flags about, the day, like, I'm trying to think of some of the bad ones that were asked to me over the years, about, insinuating that, you don't really take calls, or will you be sending emails or contacting me after work hours, and not showing them, maybe inadvertently in your question, that you're not going to answer calls after you pull your car in the driveway. I mean, most managers respect your time, but sometimes something important comes up at 9 p.m. I got to shoot you an email. And let's be real, guys. How hard is it to just respond to an email? We respond on our phones 24/7 for the stupidest things. You don't want to show them that you shut it down after a certain time and will not respond to an emergency. So any questions that are kind of showing that, like, you're worried about how long the day is or anything like that, just use common sense, guys. Really, keep it focused, keep it energetic, keep it positive, and all the questions should be focused about learning more, about how to make a bigger impact. So whatever you're going to ask, think of it that way. Is this question something that can help me make a bigger impact at the company? Or is this just bullshit that I can ask later on and find out the answer to? If that's the case, then ask it later on. Don't ask it, during the interview, where it's time to really shine and stand out.
So kind of along those lines, is it okay to ask about compensation, or how should I bring that up?
Compensation, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Compensation, I mean, that's key. I mean, you should know, recruiters, sometimes this is different for certain roles, but a recruiter shouldn't move you forward to a hiring manager unless they had a conversation with you about the compensation. So for me, the last thing I want to do is send a candidate that's a good candidate to a hiring manager, and then I get them there and they're like, well, Joe didn't tell me it was only 100 base. I make 150. So no, I don't want this role. All I did was waste people's time. So I say that right up. Here's the company, here's the product, here's the comp plan. Excuse me. So most hiring managers should, in the interview, say, are you familiar? Did they go over the compensation plan with you, and give you some more feedback? But it's okay to clarify that. Now, would I do it in the first 5 minutes? No. But at some point towards the end of the call, when they say, do you have any questions for me? you could ask, again, questions that can help you hit the ground running and learn more about how to make an impact are more important. But if you truly have no clue about the comp and you're in an interview, to me, that's a red flag. I don't think that happens too often, but if you want to talk about it towards the end of the interview, absolutely. That's fair game. I mean, this is your livelihood. So you got to make sure that it's the right fit for you.
How many versions of my resume should I create for different roles? Example, device versus diagnostic.
Okay. This is something that you don't want to make it too diverse for every role, because I'll tell you right now, it's going to happen, because I get this all the time where reps send me a resume and then they start telling me about it. And I'm like, well, what the heck are you talking about? I don't see that on your resume. And then they tell me, well, oh, which one did I send you? Okay. Guys, if you're going to have multiple resumes, you have to be organized, because if you did that with me as a recruiter, trust me, you sent the wrong resume out to many people and definitely lost those opportunities. So I wouldn't be all over the map where you're looking at pharma roles, device, diagnostics, marketing, clinical, and you're doing all these different things. Have more of a focus of what you want to do, so you don't have 15 versions of yourself, because you don't get anywhere that way. So I would suggest, if you got to tweak a couple of words that are trying to match what's in the description, because AI is reading that and that, I get it. It doesn't really work that way. Excuse me. At the end of the day, I mean, if you don't have buy and bill in your resume and a requirement asks for buy and bill, of course you want to put that in there, or specialty pharmacy experience. You have it, but you didn't have it in one version of your resume. Of course you want to put that in there. But just trying to match words like the adjectives we talked about to change up the resume, I mean, I wouldn't do all that. I would be more focused on a certain industry you want to get into, so you're not constantly changing it. So there really is no number. But if you have, more than 3 types of resumes out there, I would take a step back and question yourself. Do I really know what the heck I want to do? And I don't want to be tough on you guys, but you have to know what you want to do. I mean, if you have a pharma and a device resume out there, I mean, most people should know I either want to go into pharma or device. You don't want to, because they're very different. It's a very different lifestyle, So I personally would stick with 1, or 2, but anything more than that, I think it's getting a little crazy.
And last one, what do you wish more entry-level candidates understood about this job?
That the biggest reality that I can tell all you guys going into this industry, it's very volatile. Okay. So again, this is me talking like big brother with almost 25 years in this, over 23 years. I thought I would have one job for the rest of my career. It's not going to happen, guys. There are some people out there that have been at one company their whole career, 25, 30 years. God bless them. That's awesome. The average rep lasts about 2 years at a job. So you have to be prepared that you're going to have to change. You're going to have to be adaptable. It's out of your control. A lot of these things, you could be the best rep. They can lose coverage. A product can lose its patent. New leadership takes over. Companies get acquired. There's so many things that are out of your control. So if you're not ready to be adaptable and realize that you might be jumping to 5 to 10 companies throughout your career, it happens. So I hope you last at one job your whole career, but odds are you're going to be jumping around because companies come and go. So that would be my biggest advice, is that be prepared that it's very volatile. It's a great industry to be in. Once you're in, you're typically always able to find another job. But have that understanding that it's not going to be one job where you retire with your gold medal or plaque showing 40 years of service. It's not going to happen. So if I knew that, that definitely wouldn't have scared me away by any means. But it would give me a better outlook to realize that it is normal to not last 10, 15 years at each job.
That's all I got for you, Joe. It's been
Awesome.
a quick hour, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to continue in subsequent calls coming up, where we'll focus more on the storytelling, the networking, and the interview prep. We spent a lot of time on the resume and had a lot of questions, which was awesome. For you guys to, moving forward, again, if you'd like to contact me, contact me via email. If you want to have one-on-one coaching, it's joe@reppath.com. Thank you, James. And again, Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching is my YouTube channel. So definitely subscribe to that. It's free. You'll be able to get all this content and more, and future content that I'm going to provide. And for those of you on this call, the promo code so you can get discounts in that for that coaching is just Licata, Licata. And for all you lobby members, please, same promo code, Licata, Licata. Reach out to me, shoot me an email, message me on LinkedIn. We could schedule an intro call to discuss and provide that code, and you'll be able to get the discounts. So I want to thank everyone again. Great call, a lot of good questions. We'll follow up with the leadership series next week. We're actually going to do a different time and day just for scheduling conflicts next Thursday at 4 p.m. But I'll send out the invite so all you guys can see that. But thanks again, guys. I hope you have a great week, and talk soon. Take care.